Okay, we're going to immediately crack on with this panel because I know we're already running behind time. So welcome to this panel, which is looking at the implementation of the Migration and Asylum Pact. I mean, this is an important issue, and it's great that the Cyprus presidency is going to be dealing with the issue of migration. I mean, for Cyprus, this is an important step. I mean, the implementation of the pact for many reasons, not just because Cyprus is actually a frontline state, which is under considerable pressure. I just actually returned from the island a few weeks ago, so I can tell you that I witnessed, firsthand the actual pressure that Cyprus is under from this issue. So I think, among other things, the impact of the pact will allow for a much fairer sharing of responsibility, which I wouldn't say is necessarily the case at the moment. More money, because we always need more money, right? And to modernize and strengthen EU migration management, which is also a crucial thing that needs to be done. So we're going to be talking about how the pact is going to be implemented, and we have the great speakers that my colleague Nicolas just introduced, and I want to thank you, Nicolas, for asking me to moderate this panel. For anybody that knows me, I have a very big soft spot for Cyprus. So it's always a pleasure to do things related to Cyprus. But as we don't have much time, I want to immediately kick off this discussion by giving the floor to the Deputy Minister for Migration and International Protection for his opening keynote address. So yours is the floor.
Thank you, Amanda. Members of the European Parliament, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be here with you today in order to share some thoughts on the critical matter of the EU Pact on Migration and Asylum and the EU migration policy in general. This is a topic of immense strategic importance for the future of the Union and one of particular interest for Cyprus as we prepare for our incoming presidency of the Council of the European Union. The adoption of the Pact on Migration and Asylum marks a truly historic moment and a significant turning point for our Union. It is a definitive political and legislative commitment to a more cohesive, balanced and unified EU-wide approach to managing migration. Cyprus has consistently championed this approach, as we believe that such multidimensional issues should be dealt with collectively. Thus, no member state would be left struggling alone, and the EU would reaffirm its role as a key regional actor. Previously, our migration policy was fragmented, thus generating ad hoc responses and undermining our capacity to act in a coherent way. The Pact, by introducing common rules, standardized procedures, and predictable mechanisms, finally establishes the necessary legal framework to ensure that we will be operating in a concerted and efficient manner. This integrated approach is also essential so as to achieve fairness and a genuinely shared sense of responsibility. It is undisputable that the quality of such an ambitious common policy is tested on the ground. For Cyprus, a member state situated at the southeasternmost frontier of the EU, the Pact represents a vital and necessary step forward. We are a frontline member state facing some of the highest migratory flows per capita in the Union. As a matter of fact, the Commission's first annual asylum and migration report verified that Cyprus is under migratory pressure. This is a formal recognition that, despite significant national efforts by our government over the last 2.5 years, it is imperative to continue working towards easing the burden on our capacity and infrastructure. In particular, the Commission noted that between July 2024 and June 2025, Cyprus still ranked among the top 3 countries in the Union in terms of irregular border crossings relative to our GDP and population. Furthermore, in the same period, we received the 2nd highest number of international protection applications in the Union relative to our size. Accordingly, the Republic of Cyprus adopted a gamut of measures to handle the repercussions engendered by this pressure. Crucially, previous mechanisms for burden sharing were not always visible or guaranteed. Therefore, mandatory, structured, and reliable solidarity is an absolute necessity so as to achieve fairness, stability, and for maintaining public trust in the European project. At this juncture, it should be pointed out that Cyprus managed to diminish irregular flows and increase returns owing to the support granted by the EU and member states. This is a testament to the indispensable need for EU-wide collaboration on migration. Furthermore, it is our sincere belief that through the application of the Pact, there will be significant improvement in the field of migration for all member states. In our view, the cornerstone of the Pact is its comprehensive and coordinated approach, encompassing all stages from arrival and screening to asylum, reception, and return. The new legislative instruments are fundamentally about re-establishing the balance between responsibility and solidarity. Another crucial aspect of this apparatus is the solidarity mechanism. This tool is essential for frontline member states because it envisages that all member states should contribute to an annual solidarity pool to assist countries under migratory pressure. Given that Cyprus has been designated as being under migratory pressure, as already mentioned, it will have priority access to this pool when the regulation enters into force. This edifice allows member states to demonstrate solidarity in tangible forms: relocation of asylum seekers from states under pressure, financial contributions to support national asylum systems, alternative solidarity measures such as technical or material assistance. By making solidarity predictable, we ease the burden on the shoulders of those affected the most and enhance the collective capacity of the Union. In addition, the Pact streamlines and accelerates procedures. It introduces a mandatory pre-entry screening process for all irregular arrivals to swiftly identify and assess third country nationals at the external borders. Furthermore, the Pact stipulates accelerated asylum and return border procedures, particularly for applicants from countries with low recognition rates, aiming for rapid decisions on either protection or return. This structured approach is quite important as it reduces the initial administrative burden on member states of first entry. The Pact also reinforces the external dimension of migration by forging and deepening partnerships with third countries of origin and transit. Finally, enhanced tools for returns, including clearer rules on safe third countries and strengthened cooperation with EU agencies, entrench the credibility and efficiency of the overall system. The Pact is an inclusive, sophisticated, and complex legal framework. Its success hinges on its orderly, full, and coordinated implementation across the EU. The Commission's update noted that key challenges remain, particularly in the timely operationalization of the new Eurodac system, ensuring sufficient and adequate reception capacity, and finalizing the arrangements for fundamental rights monitoring and legal counseling. Ladies and gentlemen, as Cyprus prepares for its presidency, we are committed to acting as an honest broker in order to materialize our collective aim, namely to move from theory to action. We must demonstrate that the European Union can respond decisively and collectively to this challenge, applying a set of rules that is robust, humane, and truly faithful to our core values. For the first time, we've managed to devise a comprehensive legal framework with a view to addressing together the multifaceted challenges posed by migration. It is therefore of utmost importance to believe in this endeavour and work hard to render it successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, for this very frank and meaningful opening statement, where I think you covered pretty much all of the points of importance within the Pact. But I'd like to come with one follow-up question, because within the Pact, you have the EU's annual migration management cycle. I mean, what was the role of Cyprus in actually shaping this? I mean, how do you see this functioning?
Well, thank you for the question. As I mentioned, and as you know, we're a frontline member state, and we've been heavily impacted upon by migration. So migration is one of the top issues on our agenda, both internally, domestically, and at EU level. So we've been taking part actively in the discussions in order to shape the agenda at EU level. And it is quite important to us that eventually, taking into account what was the situation like 3 years ago, now we've got the Commission and Member States virtually on the same page in terms of migration. And that's a very significant development, and we're quite satisfied. Of course, there are some divergences, there's some divergent positions and views. It is normal in a big family of 27 member states, but we believe that we all agree on the gist of the Pact, of our migration policy, and we can work together in order to tie up some loose ends, or in any case to implement this Pact and the set of rules, the legal framework, in a meaningful way, so as to, as I mentioned, achieve some tangible results. We really need those tangible results. Member states, the European Union, Europe in general, were caught unprepared 10 years ago when the acute refugee crisis erupted. So I think it's time to get things straight, and the Pact is a fantastic opportunity to do so.
Great, thank you very much, Deputy Minister. And now we'd like to turn to Mr. Onidi, who's the Deputy Director at DG Home. As the Schengen coordinator, what would you say is the biggest operational challenges for member states in terms of aligning Schengen practices with the Pact's new requirements?
Thank you for this. First, let me thank the organizers and welcome the voice of Cyprus here in Brussels through your organization. I would also like to thank the minister. Minister has been like a very, very strong partner of ours in the many stages in defining the Pact, but also improving the overall migration management in the EU. The minister stated that the Pact was of strategic importance for the EU. I believe the Pact is of strategic importance for Schengen as well. And Schengen rests on two aspects that was at the core of the attention of the founding fathers of Schengen. It is on the one hand a proper way of managing migration collectively, and on the other a capacity to cooperate on security. And on those two are really the absolute essential ingredients in order to cater for a border-free area within Europe. So in that context, I believe two very, very important facts plead also for a swift, full accession of Cyprus to Schengen. The first one being the very, very responsible and impressive management of the pressure Cyprus has been under in terms of irregular arrivals, the way Cyprus has developed the means to actually cater for these arrivals. And the second, the coming into effect of the Pact, which is an additional accelerator of a number of absolute essential changes, structural changes, but also capacity building that goes with the Pact. I would maybe mention a few, notably in the context of Cyprus. First, the capacity to review the entire procedures at external borders with the screening regulation coming into effect, with also a fundamental new feature that is one of the cornerstones of the Pact, which is the capacity to process most of the requests for international protection at the border and some of the elements that go with it. Training of border guards, the resources also at the border, the reception capacity at the border, reception capacity that needs to be adapted as well to avoid absconding of individuals while the procedure is taking place. And also very important, the capacity to overview and monitor fundamental rights aspects during all the different stages of the procedure.
But maybe just to follow on, out of all those challenges, what would you view as the actual biggest challenge, the one that's going to, be the most difficult to actually to crack?
Yeah. I think one of the most challenging is to actually integrate, on the one hand side, what we do at borders, and on the other side, what is being done in terms of conducting processes, looking at asylum applications, and, as the Minister very, very well stressed, the continuum throughout the procedure from the point of arrival, border procedure, asylum request, procedure to grant or not international protection, and ultimately for those who do not get this position of international protection, the return operation. And on all these features, we have seen Cyprus stepping up efforts very, very with a lot of determination, and the results are there. So I think that in terms of the operational capacity to integrate those stages, Cyprus is definitely ready. Second, there is, of course, still a number of legal adaptations to be made. Even the most powerful minister doesn't fully has his or her parliament under control, so it's normal that there's still some issues to be done. And third, it is to build capabilities, and there as well we are very thankful to the minister for having fought towards his colleague, the Minister of Finance, to get increased budgets year by year, which has allowed, I think, Cyprus to build up the capacity in terms of all the different professional capabilities that you need, and also cater for the physical infrastructure that will be needed, notably at strategic border crossing points.
And maybe just one last question. I mean, in terms of best practices, I mean, have you used best practices from other scenarios or cases when you were adopting these new steps? And if so, from where?
I think the issue of best practice is one of these key features that made the European Union such a special place, yeah. And indeed on something as complex and as diverse as migration, it is absolutely essential. We've looked at this in the context of, I think, somewhat of a very structured way of preparing the implementation of the Pact. every member state has been brought to produce a national implementation plan, which was basically the starting point not only for their own preparation, but also the starting point for getting to appreciate what the others were actually doing. And we've, of course, created the opportunities in order for all member states on a regular basis to be able to discuss all these various issues. And then the second aspect is, of course, the fantastic support we are getting through agencies that work hand in hand with the authorities, agencies that have grown over the last years. Is it the European Union Asylum Agency, Frontex, represented here next to me, but as well Europol. Three agencies that will be absolutely essential in the context of the implementation of the Pact.
Thank you. It's good to know that you're all in sync in working together. And with that, I want to turn to our representative from Frontex, the Deputy Executive Director, Sarekanno. I hope I didn't pronounce that too badly. And put the question about how is Frontex adapting its support to Cyprus, given the high migratory pressure, and how is Frontex assisting Cyprus with the new screening and border procedures?
Yes, thank you very much. And again, also my appreciation for the organizers and also for Minister, particularly for the good cooperation that Frontex has had over the years with your agencies and officers. When we are talking here, we have currently officers deployed to Paphos and Larnaca airports doing the first line and secondary line checks. Plus, we have also officers in Pornara Center for registration. So, and ongoing, return operations as well. So there is a lot where we are cooperating, and I think the collaboration so far has been very, very positive. Now, when we speak about the Pact, it comes in a very interesting moment of the Cyprus presidency, and it is one of the important pillars of improved migration and border management in Europe. There are many other measures that we are taking as well in parallel. Entry-exit system went live on 12th of October, which is first time in Schengen area where we have a centralized overview of all the people who are in, who are out. Important milestone for understanding or running the controlled migration in Europe. We have been enforcing cooperation with third countries, which is very, very important to bring down the numbers of people risking with their lives in Mediterranean. And we see that this is paying off. If you look at the statistics, then the irregular migration to EU borders is downwards. So during the last 10 months, Frontex recorded 152,000 irregular entries, and this is the lowest level that we have seen in a decade. And this shows that the measures that we are taking in strengthening the border management as well, in cooperation with third countries, are paying off. But it doesn't take away yet the burden from frontline countries, and we have to really invest there. And there, as Director General, Deputy Director General was pointing out, Pact is a bit of a game changer. We really have to make an effort to implement it in a way that we really speed up the procedures at the border, where we still have a likelihood of returning people who should not be entering to Europe. And also, we would have a proper screening procedure in place that would enable us to identify the most vulnerable groups who really need protection. How Frontex could help and what are we doing there? 4 elements there. First part is screening. There we have, jointly with the European Agency for Asylum, developed a screening toolbox, which is a set of measures that every member state and their authorities could use in practical implementation. We have tested this toolbox already in Italy. We are going to test it also in Romania. So there is also practical lessons learned that we will bring into it. But further than that, we can support in the screening process with the deployment of our own officers. Of course, our resources are not, I mean, they are limited, so this needs to be kept in mind. But we also, next to the standing corps officers, have translators and we have cultural mediators. And this really is something very important for dealing with the third country nationals who are arriving, because you really need to know in the screening process with whom you are dealing with. And if you don't have the documents, if you don't have the necessary knowledge, I mean, this is a bit of a bottleneck that you have to face. So, I mean, here we can certainly provide help. So first thing is screening. The second part is returns. We, last year, with the help of Frontex, more than 56,000 third country nationals were returned to home. This is a growing number. And also here with the Pact implementation, we have some practical experience that we can bring into your service, how to identify the most vulnerable people, how to deal with them, how to do the risk assessments, but also we can deploy return teams that could help you with the practical implementation of the return measures. Third part, it's probably the most visible at the moment, is trainings. We have a very, very long catalogue of trainings that we offer for member states. As Mr. Onidi was pointing out as well, one of the challenges there is that there are so many actors dealing with the Pact implementation that it is important to really try to bring them on the same level of understanding, ensure that they follow similar procedures, and there is information sharing between them. And here, I mean, Frontex trainings have been very well received, and we continue providing them. And last point, I mean, where we can come into play is our growing role in intelligence gathering, of our understanding about the flows, our understanding of the countries of origin, our understanding of the different migratory routes, which is valuable knowledge when you are planning your resources when dealing with the implementation of the Pact. So I stop here. Many things to do, but also I would say that the big role will be remaining with the member states concerned and their authorities, and Frontex is in the role to support you there.
Thank you very much. I mean, maybe I can just come back to you, Deputy Minister, if you would like to respond to anything. Or there's still certain areas where you would like to see a more robust approach, I mean, from Frontex or other actors within the EU institutions?
Yes, thank you for giving me the floor again and the opportunity to thank Frontex for their invaluable assistance. Just wanted to point out that this year alone, we took part in 16 flights, repatriation flights that Frontex has organized. And I think we broke the previous year's record. It was 14 last year, I think, and this year is 16. Together with the Frontex officers who are present in Cyprus, as I mentioned, we couldn't have made it without the Commission's support, Frontex support, EUAA support. So it's quite important to keep it up and enhance the role of those organizations and agencies. We could also use the Frontex's reintegration programs. I think that's that will be a very useful program, because it's not just about stopping people at borders, sending them back. It's also about helping them to rebuild their countries and their lives, and they need to have something to go back to. So I think we can build on the work that the EU agencies have done so far, and I think it will be to the benefit of everyone if we continue working together. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. I mean, I now want to come to our think tank guys here, because they're not always so diplomatic, huh? So first of all, to you, Davide Colombi, who's a researcher, Justice, Home and Affairs at CEPS, my former employer. So maybe I can ask you to give a sort of quick overview, actually, of the weaknesses and strengths of this pact, because, I mean, so far it sounds like a marvelous tool, right? You know, almost perfect, huh? But I know that you would be able to probably, you know, pick a bit away at it.
Yeah, I think I'll be the first negative voice on this panel. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I think although we're discussing the implementation of the Pact, we should not forget the premises upon which the Pact is based. And they're very fragile premises. First of all, and we've been saying this for a long time, the Pact has basically been shaped by what the member states want and requested from the Commission. So rather than really assessing the situation on the ground and the issues on the ground, it was more about what the member states feel that they need, which, I mean, the two things are not necessarily opposed to each other, but some evidence. For example, the Pact comes without an impact assessment, which is required in the better regulation guidelines, but the Pact did not really come with these bases of evidence to accompany it. And of course, the Commission has evidence and analysis, and they know what they're doing, but also some of the elements that could have been identified with an impact assessment will inevitably come up during the implementation of the Pact, namely the fundamental rights impacts of the Pact, which are important. And this will also lead to legal challenges in several member states. I would assume legal challenges that could have also been prevented if a full impact assessment had been carried out and some elements had been revised. Also, the Pact is based on the idea that member states before were not necessarily complying with the previous framework, and the Pact will bring about this higher compliance among member states. However, we've seen that right after the Pact was approved, several member states several governments started requesting opt-outs or for the revisions of the Pact, which is pointing out to some member states likely not fully complying with the Pact that has been approved. And this is also happening in a political climate where several governments have also attacked domestic and international legal judicial institutions like the European Court of Human Rights. So this shows that it's also there's a rule of law issue that is linked to migration and asylum policy, and not just a migration issue. And there's also a question of whether the Commission will enforce EU law, like the Pact from now on, because in the past we know that they've been shying away from infringement procedures when it comes to non-compliance. One justification was that the law was about to change, so infringement procedures were not necessarily needed. Now that the law has changed and is being implemented, there is a question as to whether the Commission will actually enforce compliance. And I think this compounds with the fragmentation that the Pact has built within, which is basically the exceptions and derogations that often apply in different scenarios. So crisis, instrumentalization, force majeure, which are loosely defined situations, but also comes with exceptions from the normal procedures, from the regular procedures, which risk undermining the common nature of the common European asylum system, because a member state could apply different procedures in different places around them at their borders, but also different member states applying different measures at different times. And last point, and then I will conclude, I think there's also implementation will also be affected by the ongoing negotiations on the amendments on the safe third country notion, the safe country of origin notion, and the return regulation. So basically what we're seeing is a legal framework which has not been operationalized yet, that is already being changed by the Commission, the Council, and the Parliament likely. So yeah, these all adds up to a degree of legal uncertainty, unequal rights for the people affected by the measures in the Pact, and also confusion, possible confusion among national authorities and EU agency staff. So yeah, there's also strengths, by the way, not only weaknesses, but yeah, I will start with that.
Thank you. Would you, Deputy Minister, like to respond to any of the critique or the colleagues at this point? Would you like to pick up on anything that was said or we can move on.
Just the point of the safe country and return regulation. Indeed, there's an ongoing discussion in order to finalize these instruments, and we believe that it is necessary to come up with a solution in order to complement the Pact. And we're quite optimistic that we'll find solutions in order to strengthen the legal framework of the Pact.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to turn to our last speaker, to you, Alberto Tagliapietra from the GMF, on the issue of externalization, which has always been an issue. Do you expect externalization to gain importance as member states struggle with implementing the Pact, especially the solidarity mechanism?
Yeah, thank you very much, Amanda, for the question, and also to the organizer for the kind invitation. It's very good to be here at a moment of crucial importance for the migration field in the European Union. Over this next 6 months, we will see the implementation of a reform that technically should completely change how Europe deals with the matters. But to go back to the question, well, I think that externalization has been a key policy tool of the European Union for the last 10 years, particularly after the so-called migration crisis in 2015 kicked in. And I think that while the Pact is trying to overcome some of the issues that led the European Union to be so much reliant on externalizing migration controls, it still is lacking some of the key elements to make externalization less relevant for the European Union. First of all, as it was mentioned last week, the European Commission published the first annual report on migration and asylum, and as it was mentioned, it identified 4 countries of the European Union as the countries that will have access to the solidarity pool, which are Cyprus, Greece, Italy, and Spain. Technically, according to the new Pact, these 4 countries should have access next year in 2026, once the Pact is applied, to solidarity measures from the other member states as they are facing migratory pressure. These measures should be economic support, practical technical support on place or relocation of migrants. The point is that after the Commission published the report, we already had several EU countries saying that they are not willing to cooperate under the solidarity pool, and they are not eager nor to relocate migrants, nor to financially contribute to member states under migratory pressure. So, of course, this creates already a pretty important issue on the internal side, because if we are not able to have the 27 member states to act under the principles of solidarity and border sharing as envisioned in the EU treaties, then we got a big issue in making the World Pact work. And a second vulnerability that I see is that of, for example, that proves this point, is the unwillingness of countries like Germany to recognize the mutual recognition of return decisions. Under the current system, countries of first entry are responsible of managing migrants coming to the country and to assess if they can be protected under international law, or if they can be given asylum status, and also in case they can't, to be returned to the origin or transit country. Under the clause of mutual recognition of return decisions, technically, even if a person moves from the country of first entry to a second country, like for example Germany, also Germany could return the person following this clause. The point is that countries like Germany are arguing that if, for example, under such conditions, countries as Italy could take advantage of this measure to let people leave the country and move into Europe, so that other European countries will have to actually act on the return, which is a very complicated practice. So already from these 2 issues that we are seeing emerging already, I think that externalization is staying one of the key relevant policies of the European Union, and will even gain in importance. And we are already seeing it, for example, in the idea of creating returns hubs in third countries. This is basically an institutionalization of a system that has been present for the last 10 years and that has been providing some important, I would say, key problematicities to the European Union under several points. I think that externalization, most notably, is critically dangerous under several points. First of all, it creates a loophole in European security. The fact that we are given third countries the chance of managing and controlling our borders is very dangerous, because these countries, and we had occasions in the past, can weaponize migration to blackmail the EU, and we are giving them a strong leverage to do that in order to gain political or economic gains, for example. Secondly, I think that these kind of policies are very dangerous also because we can alienate our partnerships with third countries. This is most notably observable in the African continent, of course, and we see that the current approach of imposing our own migration policy goals on third countries is not always working, because these countries have their own priorities and they have their own policies, of course. So, for example, a case that comes to my mind is that of Nigeria. Nigeria's economy, 7% of its GDP is reliant on remittances. So, of course, the country is not eager to limit its own people freedom of movement to just receive some development aid from the EU, for example. And maybe just on a third point that I think is important, and I will close on it, is that is linked to this, to development aid and to the negative conditionality, which is this idea of punishing by reducing development aid to countries that are not supportive of our own goals of migration, so reducing the flows, curbing migration, and increase returns. So.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and sorry for cutting you off, but I know that we're running out of time, and you made some very good points. Externalization. I mean, the example of Turkey would be one example where they then use
Tunisia,
it for leverage,
Libya,
But I want to give the last word to the Deputy Minister with two very quick questions. I mean, do you feel that you're now receiving much more solidarity and support from other member states in the EU than was previously the case? And what would remain the biggest challenge that you face in terms of migration, and how would you like to see this addressed?
Well, one of the challenges ahead is how to actually materialize and implement the solidarity mechanism. So the introduction of this mechanism in the Pact, it's a very welcome development, and now we're in discussions with the Commission and our partners in order to find practical solutions. As I mentioned, we've got an excellent collaboration with the Commission and the agencies around the member states, but we do understand that there are some concerns on the part of other member states regarding several aspects of the Pact. We're willing to listen to the concerns. We've already held some bilateral meetings to listen to their views in order to attempt to bridge gaps in light of our upcoming presidency as well. So it's an ongoing process, and we'll see how the solidarity mechanism will be implemented. Now, in terms of challenges, even though the numbers, the flows are now have decreased, have significantly decreased. I mean, it's a very, some parts, some regions of the European Union remain vulnerable, either because of weaponization, instrumentalization of migration, owing to the operations of criminal smuggling networks, and we've got a serious problem in Cyprus because criminal smuggling networks operate in Turkey and in the occupied areas. So we need to work together with Europol or with other member states in order to dismantle those criminal networks that operate transnationally. And of course, in a volatile region like the Eastern Mediterranean, the Middle East, and other regions, Western Africa, you never know when a new crisis or a new armed conflict erupts, and then we'll have to be ready to confront new challenges that might arise. So it's a constant exercise, and we need to be prepared at all times.
Thank you so much. And with that, we need to close this panel. I feel like I've been doing speed dating here, to be honest, because we've been going through this topic, which is a really important topic, so quickly, and really deserves a much longer time to really dig into it. But I'd like to thank you, Deputy Minister, and all other speakers for joining us today and giving us these very clear insights on the implementation of the Pact and where the challenges remain. So thank you, and I think we have to move to the next panel. Thank you.